How long has a liquidator got to pay the creditors and the debts in a member's voluntary liquidation? Members' voluntary liquidation is a solvent liquidation. Now, this is important to directors in owner-managed businesses that are also the shareholders of the company, because if they are using for tax purposes the members' voluntary liquidation procedure to extract their cash from a company and their capital, they want to be sure that they are going to be able to go into members' voluntary liquidation and not wind up the other end in a creditor's voluntary liquidation, which is an insolvent one. And the liquidator's only got a certain amount of time after making an opinion that what the director says is correct, and they've got to show the creditors the money. And there was a recent case by Judge Agnello in which this matter was considered, and the answer is 12 months. A company can only be entitled to go into MVL if the directors have sworn the strict criteria set out in section 89.1, and in the event that the 89.1 test cannot be met during the period not exceeding 12 months, then the members' voluntary liquidation MVL must be converted into CVL, which is creditors' voluntary liquidation. In a members' voluntary liquidation, the directors under section 89 of the Insolvency Act 1986 have to swear a statutory declaration of solvency that the company will be able to meet all debts with statutory interest within 12 months. And if they are unable within 12 months, then under section 95 of the Insolvency Act 1986, this applies and the company has to go into creditors' voluntary liquidation, and it can no longer be treated as a solvent members' voluntary liquidation. And under section 96 of the Insolvency Act 1986, that is the conversion where the company then follows the creditors' voluntary liquidation procedure, and the creditors can then appoint the liquidator in place of the members or the shareholders' appointed liquidator. It's important to recognise that this is a completely different liquidation procedure. When a company goes into creditors' voluntary liquidation, it is no longer a solvent liquidation. And the idea behind the members' voluntary liquidation, which the purpose primarily was for solvent companies and for tax benefits, is a key issue as to why the procedure is used. But have to be able to pay debts within 12 months. It doesn't matter if the company hopes to be able to pay the debts within 12 months, and it doesn't matter if the company's got significant assets way above the level of creditors. If it cannot pay those debts within that 12-month period, then it has to go into creditors' voluntary liquidation, and that can have consequential effects for the tax benefits. But let's look at what the judge said. It said the intention was not to create a type of liquidation for companies who are balance sheet insolvent. So you've got to be cash flow insolvent to the tune of the 12 months. Judge went to say if the company needs to realise a significant asset in order to pay its debts in full, and there's considerable uncertainty as to how long it will take to realise the asset, then in my judgment that company is unable to go into MVL, i.e. members' voluntary liquidation. And another interesting point is what happens if there's uncertainty about a creditor. In other words, it appears that party might not be a creditor, and therefore the company could very well be completely solvent. It says, equally, a company may be able to pay its debts as and when they fall due, but be potentially unable to pay all its debts in due in the relevant 12-month period, and this may be the case in relation to a contingent or prospective claim which may not fall due for a period of time. So you've got to be able to pay within the 12 months, come what may. So there you have it. Questions, queries, concern, give us a shout. We know insolvency inside out.